should have a siddur if possible. Okay, good morning everybody. We are going to continue our studies this week with Birchat HaShachar. This will likely take us a few weeks to go through. There's just so much to be said. So the source of Birchat HaShachar is found in the Gemara. The Gemara tells us about the blessings that we are to recite every day. But you'll notice there's a marked difference between the way the Talmud tells us to make the blessings and the way we actually go ahead and make the blessings. So just for the sake of clarity, what we're dealing now with Birchat HaShachar, right? That's the group of blessings you make one after the other. In most Sidurim, you have Birchat HaTorah. In some Sidurim, you have Elokai Neshama, and then right afterwards, you have the Birchat HaShachar. In the Art Scroll, it's the bottom of page 18, and in the Koran, it's page 27. So listen to the Gemara. For those of you that want to join with me, I'm in source number 1. Kishama kol tarnagola. When you hear the sound of the rooster, Leima, a person should say, Baruch Asher Nasan Lasachvi Vina, Lahavchim Ben Yom Uvein Laila. We're going to translate this much further and more in depth, but for simplicity's sake, we're supposed to make a blessing for thanking God for giving the rooster. A sechvi is a rooster in Arabic, the ability to differentiate between a day and night. Ki patach einei, when a person opens their eyes. Leima Baruch Pokeach Ivrim. A person should thank God for opening the eyes of the blind. Ki taritz v'yasiv, when a person sits up. Leima Baruch Matir Asurim. Thank God for freeing those who are chained, because when we're lying down we can't move, so in a way we're chained. And the ability to sit up, that's when we make the bracha. Ki lavish, when we put on our clothing. Leima Baruch Malbish Arumim, we thank God for clothing the naked. So clearly, as I said, there is a difference between the prescribed order of the Gemara and how we go about making the blessings. Namely, what is the difference? So, according to the Gemara, when do you make these blessings?
While you're still in bed.
While they're happening, right? You wake up in the morning, they didn't have fancy alarm clocks, they would hear the rooster do its cock-a-doodle, and the roosters crow, I imagine. Is that correct? When a rooster crows, so you make a bracha. Thank you, Hashem, for giving the rooster the ability to differentiate between night and dark, and now I'm able to get up. Rooster gets up too early. That could be. But to be fair, in the times of Chazal, they didn't have any electric lights, so they went to sleep when the sun set, and they woke up when the rooster woke them up, and that's the way people would maximize on daylight. But clearly, the Gemara is telling us that we are to make blessings as they occur. Keep that in your back pocket for just a minute or two. I just want to show you that the Gemara does not outline all of the blessings, at least the Gemara in Brachos. There is a Gemara in Meseches Menachos, in source number 2, that also identifies 3 of the blessings that we say. In source number 2, Tanya, Rabbi Meir, Omer, Rabbi Meir would say, Chayev Adam levarich shalosh brachos b'chol yom. A person is obligated to make 3 blessings every day. Eluhain, what are the blessings? She'asani Yisrael, Shelo asani Isha, Shelo asani Bor. Interesting. So we thank God for making us an Israelite, for not making us a woman. Obviously, a woman does not make that blessing. And for not making us a bor, which is code word for servants. There's more to be said about these blessings. We're going to break them down individually as we go through them. But I just wanted to show you that while the Talmud in Meseches Brachos does give us a whole list of blessings, you also need to look at the Gemara Meseches Menachos to see the entire list. Why the rabbis chose to insert the blessings of Menachos into the blessings of Brachos, we'll talk about that too in just a little bit. But let's go back now to what's in our back pocket, right? Again, in our back pocket, we're looking at the text of the Gemara, where the Gemara says, as you benefit from all of these very beautiful things, you have to make a blessing. You open your eyes, Hashem, thank you for opening my eyes. You put on your clothing, Hashem, thank you for providing me with clothing to keep me warm, so on and so forth. So what changed? We don't do that. When do we make these blessings? When we come to shul, we make the blessings. The chazan or the gabbai gives a clap on the bima. And this is actually where the chazan, the shaliach tzibor, starts the morning prayers. So what changed? Modernity. And we can blame lots of things on modernity. I'm not sure if we can blame this on modernity, though. So if you look at the Torah in source number 3, he makes the following important comment. V'lefi seder ha-gemara hayaroi levarich al kol achas v'achas b'shaita. According to the Gemara, each one of these blessings should be made as we are going through them, meaning as we're benefiting, our eyes open, we thank Hashem, we put on our clothing, so on and so forth. But the problem is that our hands are not particularly clean. When we go to sleep, we touch the parts of our body that are unclean, so we can't make these brachos, right? The first thing, the crack of dawn, the rooster does its crowing, so you can't do you can't make a bracha, your hands are not clean. So therefore, tiknu l'sadran v'beis hakneses. Therefore, the rabbis instituted later on that we are to make these blessings in a shul. Now this answer by itself really can't be sufficient. Why is this answer by itself not sufficient? Right, to use Talmudic terms, what was the havamina? Meaning in the times of the Gemara, they were supposed to make these blessings as the benefits occurred. As they were enjoying each one of these gifts, they made a blessing. So their hands were also dirty. What, their hands weren't dirty? In the times of Chazal, when the rooster would crow, so they had holier hands, so it could be that they did. Maybe they were on a higher spiritual level, and their hands wandered less. It could be, but there's another answer provided by the Gemara why there was a switch. And that, provided by the Torah. So in source number 3, line number 2, and this is, I think, the more important answer. V'gam ipnei sherabe me'amei ha'aratzos she'enan yodin osan. There were many people who were ignorant, did not know how to make a blessing. Therefore, tiknu sheyisadru bebeis hakneses v'ya'anu amen achareihem v'yatzu yedei chovasan. Says the Torah, and I think it's the more important or the stronger answer, and that is that there were many people who were simply not able to read the text of the blessings and would have lost out entirely if we would have made these blessings as the benefits occur. So there was a point in time when everybody was learned, and that's the time of Chazal. In the Gemara says, make the blessing as you go through the actions. Fine. But somewhere along the way, perhaps it was in the times that we spoke about in the origins of the Siddur Shir, it was the times when we went to Bavel, when we lost the ability to speak Hebrew fluently, and that's why there was a necessity for the Anshe Knesset Gedola to create a formal prayer book. Does that sound familiar? Hopefully it does. It wasn't so long ago. So one could suggest maybe at that time when they lost their fluency in Hebrew, that the rabbi said, instead of making these blessings when you were supposed to, let's move them later to the Gemara. Let's move them later to the shul. But the truth is, as I'm thinking about it, that can't be sufficient. Because the Gemara was printed, if you will, right? When the Gemara became a text, in the 500s, 600s. So that's way after the Gullus of Ezra. So I don't know at what point it happened, but clearly there was a point in time where we became even more ignorant, even less fluent in Hebrew. And the rabbi said, we can't expect people to make these blessings as they happen. Let's move them to the shul. And that is our custom. Just to finish off, the Torah writes, if a person has the capability to do so, they should certainly make their own blessing. It does not mean that you should make your own blessing in your home as you're putting on your clothing. That is already done with. Our hands are not clean enough, and once the rabbis decided that these blessings are made in shul, these blessings are made in shul for everybody.
So if you make a blessing in shul, somebody is there to say amen.
That's another benefit, absolutely. Even if you're not the chazan, absolutely. So the Bida as it may, just wanted to draw your attention that when you look at the text of the Gemara, so the text of the Gemara expects that we do this as they happen, and there was a period in time between the printing of the halacha formulated in Gemara and the times of the Torah, and we're talking, let's say, about a 500-year period or so. There was in that period of time, the rabbis decided, let's make all these blessings in one place in the shul. Everyone got it so far?
Yeah.
Good. Rabbi Reiner.
I have to tell you an interesting situation. I'm saying it only because the person involved is worthy to be remembered.
Okay.
I grew up in Williamsburg. My childhood was in Williamsburg. I think that Beverly was in Williamsburg as well.
Okay. All good things originate in Williamsburg.
I davened in Yeshiva Torah Vadas
Okay.
on Wilson Street. And at that time, there was a gentleman in the yeshiva, in the shul, a little man, his name was Chaim Gel, Baruch Hashem. A remarkable person, he was really a tzaddik.
Okay.
In those days, lifesavers were kosher.
Right.
But they were not, but there was no problem.
Exactly.
He had a pocket full of samples of lifesavers, and he would go to every kid in shul
Okay.
and take him around and say, tzaddik, zog the brachos, say the brachos.
Right.
He used to say the brachos, and he should say Amen.
Right.
And gave him a lifesaver.
Very nice.
He went over to every kid in shul and did that same
And he said that he wanted to hear the Birchat HaShachar, or he wanted to hear the Shahakol?
Huh?
He wanted to hear the Birchat HaShachar, or he wanted to hear the Shahakol?
Talk about Shah.
The Shahakol. Very nice. Beautiful. Yeah, it's a big zechus to be able to say Amen. So that's just absolutely a good another benefit of reciting them in the shul. But I think the core issue here is that we just lost fluency, and therefore we just made one place for the recitation of these blessings, and that is in the shul. Okay, everyone understand generally? Beautiful. Beverly.
Another, having nothing to just
Okay.
Chaim Gel. There's actually a book
Okay.
on his life. And
Okay.
there's some anecdotes that are, his son-in-law wrote it.
Right.
And at one point he had advertised in the Jewish press as in the ASCII.
Right.
And so I have some anecdotes about it. It's very
Oh, really? And you
interesting.
wrote in an anecdote
I wrote
that was
to him,
printed?
And I thought he would change it around.
Right.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. That's very interesting. There's some.
Lovely community.
I'm sure it's very special. Sure. Okay, so now let's delve into the blessings themselves. So the first blessing that we say, and we're not going to get much past this first blessing, reads as follows. I'm looking at the Siddur right now. I'm on page 18 in the Art Scroll. Birchat HaShachar melech haolam. We've dissected all of those words. We're not going to go into those now. Asher nasan lasachvi bina lahavchin bein yom uvein laila. So based on the Gemara, you get the impression that this blessing means we thank Hashem for giving the rooster the ability to differentiate, lehavchin, to tell the difference, bein yom uvein laila, between the day and the night. And that interpretation is correct, certainly according to Rashi. If you look in source number 4, lissachvi, sachvi, Rashi says, is a tarnagol, is a rooster. The ika duchta, because there are places, dekaru litarnagol sachvi. There are places where they call a tarnagol the sachvi. Kedarmin and Birchat HaShachar, if I'm not mistaken, I think Rabbi Schwab suggests that sachvi is an Arabic word. Okay, so hanotein la sachvi vina, we thank Hashem for giving the rooster the ability to differentiate between the day and the night. Now, if we would stop there, we would question our practice that we have today to recite the blessing. Because after all, it's a blessing over natural phenomena. Can I make a blessing now thanking Hashem for the thunder and the lightning? I mean, conceptually, the Rebbeinu Shalom, yes, he has created thunder and lightning. It might be raining outside, but it's not thunder and lightning. So would it be appropriate if I made the blessing right now over thunder and lightning? So, New Alan, what's the answer?
No, I think so.
Thumbs down. Absolutely, thumbs down. So how do we come here every morning and make the blessing over the rooster? You'll tell me in the Amish country in Pennsylvania, they still use the roosters. Okay. So when they hear a rooster in the morning, they'll wait till they get to shul. But at least the bracha is on something that actually took place.
Well, I think it may be just the fact that, you're still alive. Thank God you're still alive and you can hear the rooster in the morning.
Okay, good. So we're going to say something along those lines. We're going to get something along those lines in a minute. It's just, It's just good to be alive. It's certainly a beautiful concept for all blessings. Judy.
It does differentiate, though, between things that are only, the animals like automatically.
Okay.
And people who can actually discern a difference between day and night.
Aha, interesting.
Between instinct and natural understanding.
Right, instinct and natural understanding. Okay, we're going to come back to that also. You'll see, I think there's something very much related, which you'll see in a minute or two. So in, Jeff, just do me a favor, someone walked into the building and went that way. Can you just check who it is? It might be someone who went to the bathroom or something, but let's just make sure it's someone who belongs here. So Tosfos writes in source number... Tosfos writes, just check the men's room, he might be there. The Tosfos writes in source number 5 as follows. So going on these words, Kishama kol tarnagola, when a person hears the sound of a rooster, Omer baruch shnasan lasech v'bina lahavchin. Says Tosfos, v'hu hadin afilu kilo shama. The same halacha applies even if a person did not hear the rooster. The ein bracha zu ela lehavchana al hanas haora. The bracha is. It's okay. Everyone's okay.
It was often coming in.
Got it. Okay, no problem. So the bracha is basically on the fact that we benefit from the light. The blessing is not really on the sound of the rooster. It's really that the rooster is able to wake us up, so we're able to benefit from the light. That's what I would say. Ki de'ein bracha zu ela lehavchana al hanaas haora. The blessing is really on our ability to differentiate and see and benefit from the light. Shetarnagol mavchin v'hu nehaneh min ha'or. The tarnagol, the rooster, is the one kind of who is able to alert us to the earliest crack of dawn, but then we're able to ourselves benefit from the light. So anybody who benefits from the light, such a person is able to make a blessing. So it's interesting. Tosfos is still saying you have to be somewhat connected to the blessing. He's just widening the understanding of the blessing. The blessing is not on the rooster. The blessing is really on our ability to benefit from the light. Now, an interesting question might be, well, what happens if, God forbid, a person's blind? Would they still make the blessing? Or what about the bracha of pokeach ivrim, that God opens the eyes of the blind? Does a blind person still make that blessing?
Why can't you make a
Still,
blessing?
You can do it.
According to Rav Schwab,
Right?
because others can see.
Very good, very good. So that's correct, Jeff, although I have to remind myself not to call on you because you have all the answers. It's okay.
Later on.
That's true. I haven't even seen that page yet. But it's true. The rabbis tell us that even a person, exactly, even a blind person would make the blessing because the blind person is benefiting from other people's abilities to see. And ultimately that applies to every single one of these blessings. Even if a person is not directly benefiting from what the blessings speak of, they still make the blessings because the blessings are really on the fact that Hashem has given these gifts to the world, not necessarily on your specific relationship to each and every blessing. So that once we say that, then Tosfos' question doesn't even get off the ground. The fact that we don't hear the rooster does not stop us from making the blessing, because the gift, it's a gift. Hashem has given the rooster the ability to wake up the world. There are no roosters in close proximity, although there are some wild turkeys trotting around Fort Lee. When I used to have to drive from the outskirts of Fort Lee here, so I would see every so often some wild turkeys. Anyways,
And upstairs in the liquid.
that's correct. There are other wild things roaming around upstairs, but they're not roosters, I assure you.
I took the book away from
Thank you, Alan. Please. The bottom line is, Tosfos tells us that even if we don't hear a rooster, we make the blessing. Tosfos says because we all benefit from the light, and more globally, a person doesn't have to have direct benefit of any of these blessings to be thankful that these gifts were introduced to the world. So if we would stop here, we have a pretty good understanding. We thank Hashem for giving the rooster the ability to differentiate between dark and light, night and day, and more globally on the concept of light coming into the world. Interestingly, there are other ways to understand the word sichvi. Tosfos and Rashi hanotin la sachvi vina. Sachvi is rooster. The Rush, however, has a different understanding, which you can see in source number 6. The Rush writes as follows. Listen to this. Halev nikra sachvi. The heart is called a sachvi b'lashon hamikra, based on a pasuk in Tanakh, which I actually brought for you in source number 7. Mishas batuchot chachma, who placed wisdom in the inward parts. Omi natan la sachvi vina. And who gave the, so now it depends on which translation you look at. Because if you look at Chabad.org, so it translates this verse in Eov, in the book of Job, chapter 38, who placed wisdom in the inward parts, or who gave the rooster understanding. That's Chabad. Chabad is following in the path of Rashi and Tosfos. But if you look at the King James Bible, for example, the way it translates this verse, who hath put wisdom in the inward parts, or who hath given understanding to the heart. So the machlokes between Chabad and King James is really a machlokes between Rashi and Tosfos on one side and the Rush on the other. So the Rush, yes, Judy.
Yeah, the translation here is who gave the heart understanding.
Exactly, interesting. What does the Koran translate? Also, who gave the heart? I'm using Art Scroll. Who gives the heart? Excellent. I thought you were looking at the Art Scroll. Right. I'm sorry?
Wouldn't it be more appropriate instead of the heart would be the brain?
Okay, that's a fair point. We usually associate the brain with cerebral activity, but the truth is, in many psukim in the Torah, you see the heart and the mind are very much related. The heart might be slanted more towards emotion, but in general, the lo sasuru acharei levavchem. We're not supposed to stray after our heart. Our heart just pumps blood, it doesn't think. But the heart represents our life force, and that's why in Tanakh you see many times the heart and the mind are really one and the same in terms of their function of allowing us to think. So very interesting. Rashi and Tosfos say sichvi means a rooster. Rush, based on the Talmidei Ben Yonah, an earlier source, say no, Sachvi is heart. And the truth is, if you look at that verse in Eov, the word heart makes a lot more sense than a rooster, right? The Chabad.org, their translation, it seems like it's like two disparate parts of the verse that don't really jive one with the other. Who placed wisdom in the inward parts, or who gave the rooster understanding? What does the rooster have to do with the inward? We're talking about a human being. The King James Bible and the Art Scroll and many other more approaches that use the word sichvi as heart, translate the word sichvi as heart, just make the verse flow a lot better. It's talking about who Hashem gave us chachma, gave us wisdom, and that goes to the depths of our souls, and who gave wisdom to our heart. It just makes the verse flow a lot better. So now let's go back to source number 6. Halev nikra sachvi b'lashon hamikra. The heart is called a sachvi. In one of the verses in Tanakh, he quotes this pasuk in Eov, Mi nasan la sachvi mina. Exactly. V'halev hu hamevin. It's the heart which helps us understand. V'ayidei habina adam mavchin ben yom uvein layla. And it's because of our minds that we're able to differentiate between day and night. Umipnei tarnegol mevin gamkein. And since the rooster is also called a sachvi, korin the tarnegol sachvi, hitzkinu brachazu l'omro b'shmias kol har tarnegol. That's why, you see, what does the Rush have to do? But the Rush has to kind of backtrack a little bit. What is the word? Backpedal? Is that right? That's the correct term? He has to backpedal a little bit. Because if sichvi means heart, how do you understand the passage in the Talmud? When you hear the rooster crow, you make the bracha. What does the rooster have to do with my heart? Right? Correct? So that's what the Rush is explaining over here. Since the word sichvi also means a rooster, and a rooster also differentiates between night and day, so when is the right time to be thankful to our heart for the ability to differentiate? At the same time when the rooster, who's also called the sichvi, differentiates between night and day. Do you understand what the Rush is doing? The Rush's interpretation is so compelling that sichvi means heart, it forces him to reinterpret the Gemara, because the Gemara clearly says tarnegol. So that's why you can combine both interpretations, and ultimately we make this blessing when the rooster crows, when he differentiates, but the deeper understanding is that our heart gives us and our mind gives us the ability to differentiate between night and dark, and of course to differentiate between countless other things as well. Just to finish the source in source 6, paragraph 2. Umihu, im lo shama kol hatarnegol. If a person doesn't hear the sound of a rooster, yachol levarich bracha zu she'ena ela hoda lemakom shenasan lenu bina v'havana. It's much easier to understand why a person makes his blessing if they don't hear the sound of the rooster, according to the Rush. Because according to the Rush, the ikar of the blessing is really thanking Hashem for our faculties, ability to differentiate, correct? So then, if you don't hear the sound of the rooster, I still understand very easily why the blessing is still appropriate. You don't have to say like Tosfos that it's really the fact that we benefit from the light that the rooster sees. It's even easier. Ultimately, this blessing is on our ability to differentiate between light and dark, between night and day. As I'm thinking about it now, pun somewhat intended, I understand why this blessing is placed first. Think about it. In our Shmona Esrei, what matter, what item do we ask for before anything else? After the first 3 brachot, which we're not asking for anything, we're praising God. What's the next blessing? Discernment. Atah chonein v'adam da'at. We ask Hashem for wisdom. And the Gemara says, why does that come first? Because if there's no wisdom, how can a person ask for anything? So it's so critical to have our minds, that our minds are working, and we're so thankful for that. So just like in Shemona Esrei, it's the first thing we ask for, because if we don't have our working mind, a person doesn't have anything, really. I mean, they can physically be in this world, but they can be on a different level, somewhat removed, as unfortunately we all know. So just like in Shemona Esrei, it's the first thing we ask for. In Birchat HaShachar, it's the first matter that we're thankful for. I think that actually works very, very nicely. It just came to me right now, Baruch Hashem, but I think that works very nicely, the consistency, what we ask for and what we're thankful for. Because ultimately, if our minds don't work, so we are very, very vulnerable. It's a Yadua, well-known. Rabbi Soloveitchik said this publicly at a number of different occasions, right? That the one thing he was deathly afraid of was going senile, was losing his mind. That was that he writes how that thought crept up at him at night and would keep him awake more than anything else. And Nebuch, unfortunately, it happened. Yeah, and Nebuch, unfortunately, that happened. I'm sorry?
So the brain really trumps the heart.
The brain, it's one and the same. It's one and the same. The heart sometimes has a connotation of emotion, but it doesn't really. You would, again, lo sasura achari levavchem. Don't stray after your heart. It means don't stray after your mind. You have to stay focused on the right path of Torah Judaism. So the lave and you hear many more references to the lave than the moach. We don't hear so much in rabbinic literature of our brain. You're saying in general.
Concept that the brain thinks.
That could be also. Maybe in the times of Chazal they thought that the heart was doing the thinking also. Maybe. I don't know one way or the other. It could very well be.
Medieval poetry.
Yeah.
It's all hard.
It could be. Okay.
The brain, he has my Rav Schwab book, of course, but later on in this section, Rav Schwab discusses I think under the section on girding, where he talks about the mind and the heart, that human beings are really separating us from the combination of the instinct.
Right.
Actually, the heart and the mind. The mind is really controlling.
Okay.
It's determined to do
Very,
the right thing.
right. Very nice. Beautiful.
Could be here when he talks about if we go to the heart understanding and to distinguish, really you can't go to the heart, it's really the mind.
Right.
There's really a fusion of heart and mind.
I agree, absolutely. I could say I'm very happy that we're able to get to the heart of the matter. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Okay, so if my wife was here, she'd be giving me this finger.
We were mindful to do so.
Very good, excellent. Okay, let's continue before people leave. So I want to share with you a beautiful insight from the Baruch Shamar. I've been so far this year. I'm in the process of buying a couple of more books, but there's so much to say just from reading Rav Schwab and also the Baruch Shamar, Rav Baruch Halevi Epstein, the son of the Aruch HaShulchan. I've been quoting quite often from his insights. So he has a beautiful idea on this blessing as well, and he wants to know of all the. He wants to know of all. Let me rephrase what the Baruch Shamar says. Let me rephrase it as follows. He wants to understand why we begin our blessings of thanks by looking to the rooster. What is it about the rooster that we are particularly thankful for. And he has a beautiful insight that is born out of a pasuk in Eov. This is the 35th chapter of the book of Job, in source number 8. Eov says, "Milifnei mi bahemos aretz ume'ov hashemayim yichak menu," who teaches us more than the beasts of the earth, and who makes us wiser than the birds of the skies. So clearly, Eov says, we have much to learn from the beasts of the earth. Who teaches us more than the beasts of the earth? We have much to learn from the animals. And the Gemara in Eruvin actually tells us that if the Torah was not given, we would be able to learn many aspects of derech eretz, of the proper way to act, by looking at animals. The Gemara in source number 9, Amar bi Yochanan, El male lo nisna Torah, if the Torah was not given, hayinu lamidin tznius mechatul, we will learn out the laws of modesty from a cat. The gezel minemala, we learn out the laws of theft, that you shouldn't steal from ants. The arayot miyona, and the concept of promiscuity, of forbidden relationships, from the dove. All of these animals happen to excel in each of these areas. So the Baruch Shamar wants to suggest as follows. How is it that we can keep Shabbos in Fort Lee, New Jersey? What do I mean? We're going to keep Shabbos in Fort Lee, New Jersey, but in China it's already Sunday. It's practically Monday. By the time we wake up on Saturday morning, it's already it's Shabbos in China. It's already the beginning of Monday. So how are we ever able to keep any time-bound mitzvah and assume that we're doing so correctly? How can we observe Pesach on the 15th of Nisan in Fort Lee when already in China it's the 16th of Nisan? So the Baruch Shamar says, in a very creative approach, that we're able to look to the Tarnagol. Because the Tarnagol, we're able to learn from the animals, and specifically the Tarnagol. Since the Tarnagol crows when the day breaks, that's our way of assuring ourselves that it's the day here. Basically, it's our own little, what do they call it? The standard time. It's the international dateline. It's the international dateline. The Tarnagol is the one who validates our dates. Because how would we ever have any ability to do any mitzvah? Maybe it's not the way, maybe it's the wrong date. But we see from the Gemara in Eruvin that we're able to learn from the animals. So just like the Tarnagol begins each day with a crow, with a holler, so we know it's a new day. So we know today is the 15th of Nisan because that's what the rooster did. He alerted us to the new day. And that's why we begin our blessings by thanking the rooster for its efforts. Because if it was not for the efforts of the rooster, we would not be able to say with certainty what day is what. Is it today? It's here. Right now it's a day, but in China it's the night. It's confusing. So we would not have any way to even begin the observance of any mitzvos. So we look to the animals. We look to the rooster. You're acknowledging that it's a new day. You're crowing because it's a new day. Now I can start my day of Torah mitzvahs, whatever day it happens to be. And that's why we start by giving thanks to the rooster. It's a very creative approach. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a pshat in terms of the strict literal meaning of the blessing, but I think it's a very creative and beautiful addition to our understanding of the first blessing. Rabbi Shimon Schwab asks a wonderful question in his Sefer, which I know Jeff already knows, but Jeff, if you permit me, I'll review for you and everybody else can learn for the first time. Okay, so Rabbi Schwab asks a wonderful kasha. He says that this concept of differentiating between day and night actually happens at 2 points every day, right? At dawn and at dusk. At dawn we go from night to day, and at dusk we go from day to night. And we're thanking Hashem for the ability to differentiate between night and day. Certainly if you understand that sachvi, that it refers to the heart, that we can see differences. So why did the rabbis choose to focus our attention on the transition between night going into day? They could have just as easily mandated that at mincha time, we make a bracha that we have the ability to differentiate between day and night. At Mariv, we should start the tefillah of Mariv with the thanks to Hashem. Now we know it's night. Because
we know that night follows day.
We know that night follows day. So what? First of all, in Judaism, day follows night.
But at night, in Maariv,
Yeah.
after you say the bracha in the morning
Yeah.
for the day,
Right?
once you say the bracha in the morning for the day, you know that night will follow 10 hours or whatever later.
So I can make the same argument. Once you make the blessing at night, so you know the day will follow 10 hours later. So why choose one over the other? Judy.
But day brings activity and involvement. Night brings sleep.
Ultimately, Rabbi Schwab says something a little bit different. Day brings renewal. When we wake up in the morning, one of the greatest blessings the Creator has done for us is by mandating sleep. Not only because sleep itself is delightful, if a person's zocha to get into a good sleep, because it allows us to recharge. We wake up, we could have the worst day in the world, and it's regular teva for regular people. You wake up in the morning and you get up, you think anything is possible. It's an unbelievable gift of the Creator to go to sleep. And that gift varies for people, how much sleep and the quality of the sleep. But either way, you wake up in the morning, it's a new day. It's a new day. Renewal, there's excitement. And the rabbis wanted to capture that excitement. So instead of having us make a bracha from day to night, and I've already come after a long day, and the world is in ruins, and my life is in despair, and it's terrible. So that's not the perspective we want. We want the excitement of a new day. And that's why the rabbis chose for us to make this blessing at the transition from night to day with the excitement and not from day to night. Rabbi Schwab writes this in source number 10. The emotions evoked by the impending change are completely different in the morning and the evening. In the early morning, as the day breaks, we have a wonderful feeling of anticipating the beginning of a new day. We look forward to it with happy expectancy. It is for this emotion, this pleasant, hopeful optimism, which the crowing of the rooster evokes in our hearts, that we give thanks. However, in the evening, when the day is done with the impending nightfall, no such emotion is evoked. On the contrary, it could be somewhat depressing. So we wait once again for the opportunity to make a new bracha at the break of tomorrow's dawn. That is a beautiful idea.
We actually say that in the tefillos, lahagid ba'boker chasdecha.
Right? Exactly. Very nice. Absolutely. Exactly. Lahagi baboker chastacha. We're more inclined to be positive about the kindness of God, the gifts of God in the morning, and the nighttime requires a certain amount of faith. It's not as easy to be positive after your day has been done, and life doesn't always go our way. Judy.
The opposite is in the Tochacha. In the morning you'll say Miyitin Laila, and
Right.
at night you'll say Miyitin Bak.
Okay.
And your life is terrible.
Exactly. Very good. Very good.
The opposite.
Exactly. Very good. Beautiful. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so we'll finish up. I have to leave a few minutes early to have a meeting. But Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch has a beautiful interpretation, really beautiful, that connects the first blessing with the second blessing. So in the first blessing, again, we give thanks to Hashem either for the rooster or for the heart, or really for both. Ultimately, even the Rush, who says it's the heart, has to connect it back to the rooster, because that's what's referenced in the Gemara. So the first blessing we give Hashem thanks for differentiating between night and dark, and ultimately the rooster who can see the earliest crack of dawn. We're thankful for that differentiation. What's the connection between that blessing and the next blessing? Birchat HaShachar, Hashem, you did not make me a non-Jew. To further complicate matters, these three blessings, blessings 2, 3, and 4, are not found in the Gemara Brachos, they're found in Menachos, which is why I started. Right? The Gemara Brachos lists pretty much all of the other ones, but not this 3. So why did they just give us the text of the Talmud Brachos, and then slap on an additional 3 at the very end from Menachos? If they're two different Talmudic texts, keep the text separate. Why did they choose to make one blessing from Brachos, then insert 3, and then go back to the rest from Brachos? So Rabbi Schwab quotes from the Siddur of Rav Shamshon Raphael Hirsch, another great German figure, German rabbinic figure, who says something just so beautiful. He says essentially, just like the rooster is able to differentiate between night and day, even with a glimmer of light in the sky, so too the Jewish people, we give thanks to Hashem for differentiating us with our holiness between the Jewish world and the non-Jewish world. It's the same concept of differentiation. And sometimes we're not acting particularly holy. And sometimes the light is quite dim. Right? If we're not acting in the right way, what separates us from Jew and non-Jew? You have to look very, very hard, unfortunately, sometimes to see the difference. But just like the rooster can see the earliest light in the sky, so the Rebbeinu Shalom also can see, even if it's the faintest of differences, the difference between a Jew and a non-Jew. And just like we're thankful for the rooster separates, we're thankful to Hashem, who also separates between the Jew and the non-Jew. And that's the connection between blessing 1 and blessing 2. And that's why the rabbis stuck in these 3 blessings that come from a different Talmudic passage. But the rabbis wanted to create this juxtaposition, the concept of differentiating and seeing the light and the dark, that wanted to juxtapose the rooster who does so on a physical level, and ultimately our thanks to God for differentiating the Jewish people from the rest of the Umos Ha'olam, from the rest of the nations of the world. What a beautiful idea. It was a beautiful idea that connects the 2 blessings and helps us understand why the rabbis stuck the passage from Menachos into the passage from Brachos. So just something to think about, and I'll have to answer the question next week, but something for you to consider. The next 3 blessings are all made in the negative, right? We thank God, Shelo asani goy, you did not make me a non-Jew. Shelo asani avid, you did not make me a servant. Shelo asani isha, you did not make me a woman. We'll focus on that blessing. We'll keep the other blessing aside for now. We'll come to that also, right? So why can't we say Baruch? Right? Why can't we say Hashem? Thank you for making me a Jew. In fact, if you look back at the Talmudic text from Menachos, the Gemara is, at least the first blessing is a positive one. She'asani Yisrael, source number 2. The last 2 words in the first line. She'asani Yisrael. The Gemara frames in the positive. Hashem, you made me a Jew. But in our siddur, thank you Hashem, you did not make me a non-Jew. You did not make me a slave, and you did not make me a woman. Why not be thankful in the positive? Why frame it in the negative? Okay, for all you listening on the internet, click on the next shir when it comes available, and everyone in the audience, please come next week, and we'll delve into this very compelling question, and Bezrat Hashem will continue on with our learning of the rest of the Birchat HaShachar. Thank you for coming out, and I hope you enjoyed the learning as much as I did.